Hello and welcome to another Writerly Witterings. Cheers. I am the author of 32 books in the Templar series, 3 books in the Vintner trilogy, modern spy book. I've started with a new series that's going to begin in April from Seven House, which is all about Blackjack. So I've got a certain amount of experience of writing books, and I'm now going through the process of writing a new book, which, as you can see, is being written longhand with my pen. And I've had a fairly intriguing question from someone, and it was ingenious actually, because he sent a question, or she, I'm not too sure which, as a result of one of my videos going up, and sent me this very interesting question which I saw this morning, and I tried to hit a star so I'd remember to answer the question later on today. Unfortunately, I hit the flag symbol, which apparently means that I immediately report it to YouTube as being some sort of rude question or something like that. So I've apologised to the chap already, and this is another apology. Luckily, I think I've got the gist of the question though, which is, he can often write really interesting scenes with good bits of dialogue and gets a lot of information into it, but he finds that it peters out after a little bit and he doesn't really know where to take the story after that. And so could I help him in terms of how do you develop your story beyond that initial stage? That's an interesting one, and I brought this lot with me because that is one start, that's another start, that is 3 starts, that's just character notes, that's some more character notes, and all I'm trying to show is there is no hard and fast approach. Everybody who's a writer will always say that the most difficult thing is getting the first sentence down. You can get several first sentences down, that's not an issue. The trouble is trying to pick one that's actually worthwhile sticking with. I often find that I will have 6 or 7 practice first chapters, and only when I've got them down will I actually decide which one of them is the right way to start. Then I'll have a good idea about where the story is going to go. Now, this book is actually quite straightforward because it's all about the First Crusade. So I have a defined timeline. I know when the crusade was first mooted by the Pope at Clermont. I know when the people started gathering. I know when Peter the Hermit gathered up people and started marching. I know when all the people started turning up. That's all brilliant. I know when they got to Antioch. I know when the appalling butchery happened at Nicaea. All of the other little details, that's not a problem. I know what the story is going to be doing in a general flow. What I don't know is who's involved in it, what's going to happen to the individuals over the period. So I am here deciding on the early dialogue for early characters, certain amount of backstory. I'm deciding exactly which characters, how many male, how many female, how many children, how many of them are going to still be together, or who's going to meet up during their journey, who's going to die on the journey, and so on. That will give me some ideas that I can then slot into the basic timeline. So I've got the crusade and all that's happening there. I can fit in different events for the people and make their life really tricky all the way. Because one of the main things about being a writer is you get someone who's got a fairly miserable existence and try to make it worse for them. That's the nice thing about being a writer. So I've got all these poor devils. I'm going to throw them into appalling situations and see which ones sink and which ones swim. There are bits of scene that I can think of that will slot in there. I will write certain scenes completely out of sequence and then see how they fit in for those characters. None of them will probably make it to the final book, because each of them, when I start at the beginning of the story and flow through with it, each of those characters is going to change, and so what I anticipate currently is not going to work at all by the time I get to the scenes that I've pre-written for them, if you see what I mean. So the story will change, it'll be completely rewritten by the time I get to the end. But that's not a problem. That's the whole thing about being a writer, is being a writer is not a case of, oh, that's a brilliant idea, I'm going to write 100,000 words, there you go, that's all done, so I've done my job, now it's over to someone else to pay me £1 million so I can be happy. Being a writer is rewriting all the time. I wrote a book in the second half of last year, really good story. It went to the editor and came back with a certain number of amendments. This is after I'd edited about 6 times already. Came back from the editor with some amendments. It went away. It's now come back from the copy editor, more amendments. When you're writing, it's a constant process of rewriting, rehashing the ideas, and just making sure that the flow works properly within that book. So, if you start off, you have a scene, you have some really good sections of dialogue, that's brilliant. Don't expect it to last, because it won't. What you then need to do is try to figure out what you want those characters to do. And there is one thought I would have to put down, and that is, maybe if you're really good at writing dialogue and you're not too good at developing the scenes and the different descriptive passages that you have to have in a novel, maybe you're better suited to writing film scripts or plays. I mean, maybe the dialogue is what grabs you, and that's where you ought to be sticking. But even if that is the case, you still need to know what the general theme is for your story. You need to know what the general direction of the plot is going to be, where the subplots fit in and so on. And all of that just comes from basically sitting down and writing. You've just got to sit down and write and write and write. When you've written your third full-size piece of work, is probably when you're going to be able to start looking at writing and developing so that other people are going to want to read it. The first piece of work, usually that's not going to happen. Second piece of work could be. It's the third piece of work usually where you find that you've got the attributes, you've got the general skills to be able to write. No idea if that's any help at all. I hope it's a little bit of help. I hope it's a bit of use. And on that, I'll pack it in. I'll say thanks a lot for watching. I hope that's of some interest. If you've got any questions, please put them in down the bottom there so that I can answer them. Share the video and tell your friends about it in case any of them are interested in it as well. And I look forward to speaking to you all very soon as this story starts to develop. Thanks a lot. Take care.